Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to day one of our menopause challenge. I'm going to start with our opening prayer, and then I've got a few questions and stuff from my private Facebook page too, and we're going to clarify some terms. But let's just start with opening up the space and sending lots of unconditional love. O great spirit, Father, sky, mother, earth, the winds, the waters, my father, my mother, Atanaha, all that is. We thank you for our lives, and we thank you for these good people. We thank you for all that we are and all that we are to become. We dedicate our time spent together and our relationships with one another to you. We ask that our suffering be ended, that our pain be lifted to the love and to the peace that lay beyond. Aho, Amen, Namaste. Okay, so I'm just going to call in the health angels, Archangel Raphael and his band of mercy, just surround you and any clients that you're working with or people that you're trying to help with, including other family members that might be struggling with their hormones, etc. Okay. Ooh. Now, what is menopause? Let's start with that. So, from a medical perspective, okay, menopause is one day that takes place 1 year after your last period. So, if you've had 1 year between your period, right, without any bleeding, then that one day, a year after you've had no bleeding, constitutes menopause. What we as women talk about when we are dealing with hot flushes, insomnia, estrogen or estrogen dominance, progesterone problems, memory loss, aches and pains, shorter cycles, longer cycles, rage, right? All of that is called perimenopause. And that is the stage that lasts 4 years, roughly, right? And I've worked with a lot of women on this, both when they're in perimenopause, but also when they're postpartum, right? But when we're in perimenopause, that can go up to 4 years, where your cycle starts to shorten, where your cycle starts to change, and there can be different hormonal deficiencies, and where you haven't stopped your cycles, but your body's getting ready to stop your cycles, or getting ready to stop giving energy to your fertility organs, basically your womb, your ovaries, etc. But they continue to secrete hormones until the day you die. So I would take very good care of them, period. Pardon the joke. As long as they're inside your physical body. So, from a metaphysical perspective, when we're talking about menopause, we're talking about the completion of the cycle of proactive fertility, right? The cycle of periods, pregnancy, birth. We're talking energetically about the cycle of reproduction and the beginning of the cycle of our creativity, and also of the sage archetype, where we're moving into giving back and nurturing the community, nurturing the young adults, and really stepping into our leadership as women. Instead of in that energy of nurturing the family or nurturing the children, we're now nurturing the community, and we're nurturing the next level of leaders as it comes up. So when we are not sure what to do, and it's a massive identity crisis, shifting from being the mother of children to being the mother of adults, shifting from, work and career into what is my destiny and my mission, my purpose. It's a massive paradigm shift that takes place with the completion of those things and shifting into the sage archetype. And normally, what women feel, and the biggest two emotions that I get reported during menopause is overwhelm and rage, right? Rage at what we've missed out on and at the things that haven't happened that we wanted to happen. Sometimes at the destruction of our families or of our workplaces or of our intimate relationships. But there's normally a lot of anger, especially the anger that we've repressed because we were busy taking care of other people. And a lot of overwhelm. What do I do now? How do I balance my life now? Where am I going? Am I going anywhere? Is it all downhill from here? A lot of programs around aging come in at this stage as well. And what that does, because all of our hormones, the estrogen, the progesterone, the FSH, the DHEA, All of our different hormones, from a metaphysical perspective, represent our capacity to communicate with ourselves, with our families, with our communities, and with our colleagues and with our careers. So, in our workspace. So, whenever we are not able to communicate and when we are in overwhelm or when we're in anger, that blocks true communication given and received, right? Whenever we're in those spaces, oh, hi, everybody. Can start to see you now. You have to click the link so I can see your name. Otherwise, I can just see your message, all right? If you want me to see your name, um, you can either write it in the message or you can click accept and then I'll be able to see it because I'm on Restream instead of just so I can get to everybody at once. So the reason that I'm talking about menopause is because we have more women in menopause collectively than we've had in a very long time because the baby boomers are coming out of the main reproductive phase of their 30s and moving into their 40s, but also because there's a really strong belief in the medical collective consciousness that menopause is something that you go into in your 50s, which is a complete lie, and that it's only about the end of the reproductive cycle. Whereas the reality is, and we're going to be covering this in the next 3 days, there's a lot of mineral deficiency involved. There's a lot of not knowing who we are from a metaphysical perspective and how to lead as we move into the sage archetype. And not knowing how to handle the mistakes we make as we step into leading adults instead of leading children. It's a very different energy. It's a very different paradigm. And there's also a lot of talk about hormonal therapy as well. And, I really wanted to pass on that knowledge because I think it will just end so much suffering because women are the most likely to commit suicide in this perimenopausal stage. I know, right? It brings up so much rage, so much anger, so much depression, so much hormonal imbalance, but also because I truly believe that with the right support from minerals, from herbs, from doing the spiritual and emotional work, that you can choose. I believe that we create our bodies and that we can choose whether we create hormonal balancing to stay in the reproductive cycle for longer, to potentially even reverse menopause, or to go into it gracefully because we don't want to stay in that cycle. We'd like to have our hormones, we'd like to be healthy, we'd like to be vibrant, we want our metabolisms working, but we don't want to have a period anymore. We don't want to be in the reproductive phase anymore. And there's no right way to do menopause except a healthy way, right? I firmly believe that we all have the right to make our own medical decisions, but I really, really, really believe that we all have a right to go through it pain free. We all have a right to go through it with our health. We all have a right to go through it and adjust as we go along. And that's the other big thing I want to say to you is that there's this really big lie that is that one solution will work for you. And the truth is that on your, perimenopause and menopause journey, you are going to have to adapt and flow because your hormones adapt and flow. Whereas 1 month your problem may be because you've got estrogen dominance, the next month your problem may be because you've got a progesterone problem. So the first practical tip I'm going to give you is please start tracking your hormones. There are so many free apps to do this, and there are so many what's it called, blood works that come straight to your door, or pee tests that come straight to your door. That means you can pee in a little cup and it will tell you what's going on with your hormones, and that is absolutely invaluable. There's one called Ava that you wear on your hand. It tells you by your temperature what's happening. And that's really important for you to know because some months we ovulate, some months we don't. Some months we what's it called, we have heavier cycles because of our estrogen, and some months we have heavier cycles because of stress. So it's really important that we start to have visibility and we take it out of the shame closet around menopause and around our cycle in general, and we start to know what's going on because knowledge is power. And knowledge, particularly around our cycle and our periods in this autumn of our life, can really, really radically change how we deal with our marriages, how we deal with our children, how we deal with our careers, and what we feel capable of doing in the next stage of our life. And it can also prevent disease because hormone imbalance really causes, arthritis, dementia and things like that. So it's including mental health issues, as we were discussing, with people potentially becoming suicidal because they're so angry and so depressed, because their estrogen and progesterone are really radically connected to our capacity to feel resilient and to bounce back and to feel good, particularly estrogen, which is why I'm going to go into the beliefs with the different hormones with you guys. But the first and most important thing to realize is, ignorance is not bliss. You have to have a look at what's really going on, what's really going on in your cycle, what's really going on for you. And you have to choose a way of looking at it, and not just looking at it in a way that tells you one as a one-off, because that's not accurate. Your hormonal landscape is constantly changing, and your response to helping that stay in balance needs to adapt and change too. And there's not many things that throw out of balance. So, for example, in my cabinet, I have my Agnes Castus, I have my maca, which is for my minerals. I have my what's it called? My the name's just gone out of my head. I have my chamomile and my lavender, which is for my stress relief, and I have my trackers. They help me keep track of exactly what's going on with my hormones every month. And from those places, I will choose which herbs are going to help me. My seeds for my seed cycling. So I know if I'm low in progesterone or if I'm low in estrogen, how I'm going to boost those as I go along throughout my monthly cycle. Oh, so excited for this challenge. Thank you, Sky, for sharing this knowledge in perfect timing always. It's definitely menopause month. It's really good to have you here. Hey, Sky, I've had a very heavy periods. Exhaustion is apparent and doing my best to nurture myself at 47. Aho. It's a challenge to take care of everyone else and follow and find our purpose. Yeah, it's a massive, massive. I wouldn't say it's a challenge. I would say it's a landmine. Because our life purpose involves giving and being of service. So it's another way that we give and give and give without receiving. And it's really, really important to set boundaries, and that, especially women setting boundaries, breeds resentment. And this is where, like we're talking about, the anger starts to come up. It breeds resentment from us because we have to set the boundaries, and people tend to not respect our work or respect our time, or even respect the boundaries that we set, or resent the boundaries that we set. And it comes up from them because they believe on a subconscious level, it's called unconscious bias for a reason, that a nice woman, a good woman, is available 24 hours a day. And not just available and going to say yes to whatever your request is, right? Whether it's a request for a sandwich or a request for a document or a request for help. That's the unconscious bias towards women, is that you will be available and that you will be happy to help 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's what a good woman is. And it becomes more and more and more toxic as we age. And it creates a lot of rage in us because even though we are happy to help, there's only 24 hours in a day. Time is our most precious resource. And we can't give it away freely to everybody and fulfill our mission or even survive. As so many of the women's health issues that I deal with far beyond menopause are around us wanting to please everybody and just not being able to. Right? So it's not something to work on outside of ourselves, just it's something really deeply to work on inside of ourselves. So that's the first bit of homework I'm going to give you today. And then I'm going to dive into the hormones. I'm going to grab my pad because I had made my notes on here for you guys earlier. I'm going to dive into the different beliefs around the hormones. But you can start to see how, if the most prevalent emotions and beliefs around menopause are overwhelm, right, and anger, how it starts to build up increased levels of inflammation, and overwhelm leads to us being absent, right? And that deficiency of emotion, that deficiency of hormones, is a mirror of our deficiency in presence. We're not present in any area of our lives, because when you're really busy running around trying to please everybody, you're not really present with your kids. You're not really present with your partner. You're not really present with yourself. You're not really present with God. And that means that we are absent, right? We are dissociated. And it's the same thing when we are physically absent from our lives, our hormones become absent from our bodies, because it's not true communication. And Course in Miracles talks about that, how real communication is given and received from a place of communion. And how when we are going through it from a place of busyness, it becomes about our communication becomes about the superficial stuff. How do I get that done? When do I get it done? Where do I have to be? What time am I picking up this? What would you want for dinner? Um, and nothing real is happening. Not, because real communication also requires safety, right? And if we don't feel safe, if we don't feel like there's a level of respect and a level of understanding and a level of gratitude for the work that we do, that resentment starts to build up and build up and build up and build up. So let's just start by, we've already called in the healing angels. Let's just start by letting them do a general vacuum and cutting of our cords in any places where we are just spinning, we're in overwhelm and we're in anger, and it's blocking our hormones. Ooh, there, gosh, I got goosebumps all over. Blocking our hormone production, blocking our ability to really commune with other people because we're surrounded by people, but we're feeling lonely, like we're just going through the motions, like nobody really understands us and gets us. And that's really, really strong, especially with technology. There we go. Okay, good. Okay, and then there's a real energy coming up as I'm scanning you guys that goes, will I ever be loved? It's almost, there's the real energy of I had kids to be loved, I got married to be loved, and I'm the one giving all the love and I'm not receiving any. So can we just unplug you from your kids, your partner, your clients, your students, the world as the source of love? And can we plug you into Creator as the source of love? There we go. Because when you're receiving love from the real source, other people mirror that love back to you. When you think they're the source of your love, because it's an illusion, you end up never receiving. There we go. Ooh. Okay, so can we download you with Creator's perspective, definition, understanding of how to receive without exchanging it for power? And that, can we show you that receiving is a superpower? Okay, and there's all sorts of ancestral stuff wrapped around the DNA around receiving makes you lazy, receiving makes you entitled, receiving makes you a bad person. So can we release all that? Okay, and everywhere where you have the belief, I am not allowed to have a life, can we release that, please? And can I replace it with Creator's perspective, definition, understanding of you were given a life by the highest power that exists. You're allowed to have a life. It's safe for you to have a life. It's possible for you to have a life. And your life is more than just being there for others. You are here to live your divine life purpose and follow your divine will. You are important. You do matter. Your desires matter. Okay. Okay. Hello, Rose. Hello, Marcella. Okay, I'm starting to be able to see people now. Okay. So, estrogen is the mother hormone. Progesterone is the daughter hormone. Now, this I've got a question here about heavy periods and exhaustion. When I'm doing a body scan, it's coming up as low estrogen. So I'm going to start around the beliefs around estrogen. So estrogen is connected to the mother archetype and ultimately to the divine mother archetype. So when we are low in estrogen, it means that we are low in our capacity to nurture ourselves and to be connected with the divine mother or that energy of divine nurturing. It can also be a sign that our elderly parents are fading, right? We're losing our parents and we're stepping into, hi, Tracy. We're losing our parents and we're stepping into that role of elders or sage that we talked about, and losing our mothers, whether that can be emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, um, because sometimes we just don't have an emotional connection, or we lost them much earlier on, can manifest as a depletion of estrogen. Even when it comes to losing the identity of being a mother as our kids grow up and leave. And I've had a very weird reality with this because some of you guys know I have 3 stepkids and I have my baby boy Archer, who's a 1 and a bit now. But I have grown-ass stepkids now that when I met my husband were, kids that are now grown because we've been together over 10 years now. God knows how that happened, right? So I went through this strange phase in advance where I had these teenagers and kids who were leaving the home and moving into their freedom and their independence and going through the rebellion stage. And my identity as their stepmom had to completely alter and change. But not just that, because my stepkids are quite different ages, they're quite far apart. What was required to parent them is very different, or to lead them is very different, right? So that energy of being all things to all people, and then at the same time, when Archie came along, being pulled right back into that mother role. So that really threw my estrogen off for a while. So, anywhere where your estrogen is depleted because you feel disconnected from the divine mother archetype, or you're not receiving nurturing, understanding, care, or adult parenting into the sage archetype from your own mom, or because your mom has passed away in mother's grief, can we release that now? Oh, okay. Okay, that's starting to look better. And can we download you with Creator's perspective, definition, understanding of what mothering, divine mothering looks like through every stage, every season of our life? What it feels like to have mother's love in childhood, mother's love in maidenhood, mother's love in motherhood, mother's love in matriarchal and sage archetypal, and what our soul mother feels like. Your chacha downstairs. There we go. Ooh. And can we release the prejudice, the unconscious bias, the belief that um, mother's role is only to give? And can we show you that a mother's role, like every other role, is to give and receive in perfect harmony? That a mother gives and receives love at every stage and every season of life. And that actually being able to receive the love of the children, the love of the community, the love of your partner, the love of the clients, love of the students, is essential, not just to the long-term health of the relationship, but also to their ability to feel valued and like they're making a valuable contribution and they're important to you. There we go. One of the most powerful subconscious urges children have is to give back to their parents, to give back to their family. When I work with entrepreneurs, they're always telling me I'm doing this so I can put my mom and dad up in a flat, or I'm buying them a house, or and there's this real energy of I want to give back to my family, and the showing your parents that you were not just a good investment, but how much you love them and how much you value that. And it's not in all relationships, but it's in the most healthy relationships. So if that's been distorted in any way, shape, or form, both for you as a mom or also for you as a child, where you're not allowed to give back and your contribution isn't valued, can we allow Creator to recreate that in a healthy way now? So that your contribution is valued, you are allowed to give back in balance and in the highest and best way. Okay, let's do this. Woo. Okay. So Rosaline is saying, I had my last period before 42. Then I had a little show when I worked on the uterus learning reflexology. Rosaline. Yeah. So normally when our period starts to taper off, we can have a little bit of bleeding here and there, either because there's a late egg that's released, and that's responsible for a lot of the later life pregnancies, or because the follicles are stimulated to help create the hormone. That's how every period happens. Your hormones stimulate your follicles, and then they build up the egg, and then it gets released. But you can stimulate the follicles with there being no egg release, and it will still cause a period. And in my experience, when I'm body scanning, the body does that when it's detoxing us. Right. So it would be when I'm looking, it depends. And this is what I'm saying. It depends on what you want. So that's another um, big blessing today is choose what you want, and not just what's happening in the collective consciousness. If you want to have your cycles carry on and you want to create more eggs, etc., then we can do that. If you want to stop your period no matter what ages, then we can do that. But it's getting into this mindset, heart set, soul set that you are the creatrix of your body, right? Okay. So the other very big tip I'm going to give you guys is whatever you do, whether it's minerals, herbs, hormones, etc., your body works in cycles, and not just hormonal cycles, but circadian rhythm cycles and seasonal cycles, because our whole body is wired to follow the sun, and all of the cells inside our body decide when they're going to create hormones, including sleep and waking and testosterone and progesterone, based on the cycles of the sun, right? And the sun works in seasonal cycles. That's why we have winter, autumn, spring, etc. Okay. So when we're talking about any kind of intervention, not the metaphysical miraculous ones, but the herbal ones or the mineral ones, you need to give yourself 3 to 9 months. Okay, 3 to 9 months, particularly if your hormones have been out of balance for a long time, whether that's because of perimenopause or because of pregnancy or because of stress. You need to give yourself that 3 month window. Now, I'm very good at working miracles with this, and a lot of women get their periods back after a conversation, because I really am connected to that fertility energy, and I really believe, after having done hundreds of sessions on fertility and on babies, that women are worthy of babies, and the babies come from God, not from hormones, not from bodies. So that, I think, is why that happens around me so much. But as a rule, these herbs are intelligent, the minerals are intelligent, and they're working to remove ancient karmic patterns from your DNA, from your emotional body, from your systems. And they need those 3 month seasonal windows, not just to do the superficial work, but to do the deep foundation work. So if you're going to do herbs like Agnus Castus, or Lady's Mantle, or even like St. John's Wort, it's 3 months, not 2 weeks. 3 months minimum, the same as if you were going to take an antidepressant, right? And when I prescribe normally to my clients, it's obviously individual based on their health history, etc. But it's normally at least 9 months, not just to create a strong foundation, but to create a strong neural and biological pathway for their body to follow when they start to taper off the herbs. Okay, or when they start to taper off the minerals and the deficiency has been addressed, right? So whenever you're doing an intervention, especially because we're in overwhelm and we're angry when it comes to perimenopause, and we're dealing with all these mother identity and daughter identity and very powerful female archetypes, sage identity and leadership stuff, it's already overwhelming. So actually remembering to take the herbs and remembering to take the vitamins and the minerals is really, really important. So I would set an alarm on your phone for this, and set an alarm to go off for the next 9 months, and that this is essential. And the same thing with Amazon, like set this stuff on pre-order, so that it comes in, because when you're overwhelmed and you're angry, the first thing to go is self-care, right? So unless you prioritize it in your mind that self-care is first, especially if you want to keep giving at an even higher level than you're giving right now, it will fall by the wayside, especially when the core emotions that you're working on transmuting are overwhelm and anger. Okay. Um, Someone saying, "Hi Sky, thank you for the lives. I've got selenium, zinc, and iodine for the thyroid." Yep. Thank you. I don't really know the issue. I know my hormones are not balanced. Too much testosterone, anxiety, apathy. I feel my ovaries as well. If you could double check and advise. So for you, my love, just when I'm scanning, it's stress, stress, stress. So just when I work with women trying to get pregnant or fertile, just introducing meditation increases your chances of becoming fertile by 50%, right? 50%. And not just fertile conception. It's the same thing with menopause, okay? So the first thing to look at is, where is there too much stress in your life and how can this be reduced? And if it cannot be reduced, how can it be given a different meaning or managed differently so it's not causing your whole nervous system to fry up, right? Things like money problems aren't going anywhere. Things like minor family disputes also not going anywhere. Things like organization and leadership skills are things that need to be learned, and they can't be forced. So we need to kind of energetically pull back and go, how can I reframe these so that it doesn't stress me out? And I'll give you an example. So I used to get really stressed out, especially after I'd clean the house, if somebody was to mess something up or move something. And the way that I reframed that is that my house is loved and it's lived in. Right. So now if I walk down the stairs and there's, toys somewhere they shouldn't be, or towels somewhere they shouldn't be, I actually take a minute to touch those towels. And I've turned it into a ritual, or to touch those toys and to go, this house is lived in. People feel safe enough to be so caught up in their joy in my house that they don't give a second thought to this stuff, right? And I can have a word with them and say, hey, there's a towel in the corridor, but it doesn't come from a place of anger and resentment, and disrespect, which is what I used to feel. And now what I feel is, my house is lived and my house is loved. What I used to feel is, nobody respects me, nobody cares about me, people are wasting my time by dumping this mess all over the place. So if something isn't going to change, you need to change the meaning that you're giving it. Same thing around finances. It used to really stress me out that I was had to provide for myself and for others at a certain level every month, that I had to make a certain amount of income every month. And then I switched it to, every time there's a request on me for money or finances, to not just blessing the person making that, but thanking God that I am capable of manifesting that kind of abundance, and that not only my family, but my community are taken care of, and that they will always be, because God is an abundant God, right? But I consciously had to reframe those, and it took a lot of work, months of work, to reframe those so that my nervous system wasn't in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze. Right? And those are the things that tip us the most: the mess, the money, the time, feeling we have no time for ourselves or for other people, and the organization. How are we going to do it? How is it going to fit in? It's one thing to have it all, it's another thing to fit it all in, right? How do we actually get to spiritually nurture ourselves with what it is that we've manifested? Because there's no point having a feast in front of you if you're starving to death because you can't eat the food. And that's what's happening to a lot of women, is that we have a feast, but we can't actually absorb the nurturing that we've created. So it becomes quite interesting. My hormones only just started to settle 2.5 years postpartum. Yeah, and a lot of that is minerals. So minerals, we just talked about zinc, selenium, iodine, and I love the ones that I use are fulvic and humanic minerals. And I also love the sea minerals that come in the form of either powdered coral, um, or sea oils, which come in, they're very easily absorbable. But minerals are divine right order. They're the building blocks. So we're just talking about with how do we organize and structure our life, not just what happens, but when it happens, so that that occurrence can nurture everybody and be enjoyed by everybody as well. And when our minerals are out of balance, we can't build our hormones. And it's the same thing in our life. When the order of things happening is out of balance, we can't communicate. When we're disorganized, we don't really know where we're going to be or when we're going to be there. So we can't organize connecting with other people from the place that we're in, right? So minerals, there's 100% is a hormonal hierarchy, and all the other hormones are created from insulin and DHEA. Okay, insulin and DHEA. And when we do not have enough zinc, iodine, selenium, magnesium, and these core fundamental minerals, those hormones do not get made. And particular insulin levels get completely deregulated. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you are stressed for a prolonged period of time, right? Whether that's because you haven't been getting enough sleep, or whether that's because you have a difficult situation going on at work. Your magnesium, your zinc, and your selenium are likely to become depleted, right? When your magnesium, selenium, and zinc are likely to become depleted, your body is producing more and more cortisol. Your resilience to your daily tasks is going down and down and down. Things that used to not take any energy now feel absolutely exhausting, including getting out of bed in the morning. And then when you feel exhausted, right, overwhelm kicks in, because even the tiniest things make us want to cry and curl up in a ball in the corner and hide in the bathroom. When our cortisol is high, instead of having a 15-day cycle of progesterone, and progesterone is that hormone that makes you feel sexy, that makes you feel confident, that makes you feel attractive, that makes you want to pull in the clients, that makes you want to get pregnant and have another baby, that hormone that makes you feel like, wow, I'm something special, instead of it going for 15 days, you only get it for 3. All because the cortisol was high, the insulin was out of balance, and that all happened because the minerals were low, right? So particularly when we are stressed, increasing the mineral intake, and not just increasing it by, let's say, I'm going to double my magnesium first thing in the morning, but taking it throughout the day. So taking magnesium, zinc, or your fulvic and humanic minerals with breakfast, with lunch, with dinner, is going to make you feel a lot more resilient energetically and emotionally. And when that happens, your cortisol levels stay low, your insulin levels stay more balanced. And that means that your production of estrogen and progesterone stays where it's supposed to be. And then it's 15 days of estrogen dominance and 15 days of progesterone. And you get that part of the month where you're more introspective when you're dealing with estrogen mother energies, and you get that part of the month where you're more extroverted and you want to show up, and really bring your gifts out into the world and be more visible, because your progesterone is doing what it's supposed to do. The moment that you start messing with the minerals, the insulin and the DHEA get messed up, and then all the other hormones can't really function from a metaphysical perspective. And it's the same thing in the home. The moment that the mother is stressed out, right, everything else in the home is out of balance, because everyone is relying on her. It's kind of like the bottleneck to make sure everything keeps moving and the momentum keeps flowing. And the same way that there comes a point as women where we're like, it's too much. The burden is too much. It's too heavy. I can't do it anymore. Right. So, and we'll go, I'm not doing it. And we kind of disappear and we pull away. We're kind of like there in body, but we're just going through the motions. Because we just feel so undervalued and not really appreciated or taken care of. The same thing happens hormonally. And then we find that our hormones are deficient and that there's nobody there calling the shots or telling all the other hormones what to do. And that's where, your hypothalamus stops communicating properly with the rest of the endocrine system. And it's an exact mirror of what's going on in our real life. When we stop communicating properly with our families, with our communities, so the hormones released by our hypothalamus that tell all the other hormones what to do stop communicating with all the other parts of our endocrine system, right? So it's really stepping into that power as a sage, as a matriarch, and honoring that balance is an incredibly beautiful thing. And when it goes wrong, whole families get destroyed. If the sage mother energy of nurturing everybody else in the family and holding correct boundaries for all the different positions in the family isn't held, then that's when there's a lot more conflict inside the family. And you will see children choosing their parents over their partners, over their own children. There's ancient paintings in Greece that show men and women reaching for their parents whilst their partners and their children get left behind on the cliffs, right? And these were symbolic of us having this family constellation that was out of balance. And saying, yes, I've heard of that. Organization is needed 100%. My insomnia and restlessness is through the roof. Yep, fasten. Yeah, so insomnia and restlessness, you need your magnesium, you need your DHEA, you need your melatonin, and you need these. So I don't actually wear glasses, guys. I don't need glasses. I have 20/20 vision. I wear these because they protect me from the blue light on the computer screen and from all of my devices. Why do I wear them? Because that conversation that we had about all the hormones and all the cells in your body being hardwired to follow the light, that is influenced by the light inside your laptop and inside your phone and inside all the devices that you're exposed to on a daily basis. So if you are not wearing one of these and you're spending a lot of time on a laptop, that means that instead of your eyesight and your cells and your hormonal structure encoding to the sun and the seasons, it's encoding to your laptop. And guess what? Your laptop doesn't switch off and it doesn't have seasons. So it's on 24 hours a day, like our nervous system and our hormonal system. So these blue light glasses, they're like a tenner or less on Amazon. They're ridiculously cheap. But it's really, really, really important that your circadian rhythm and your hormonal rhythm and your endocrine system is connected to the sunlight and not to your laptop light and or to the blue light. It's really, really, really important, right? Because when you're not wearing these, your melatonin gets thrown off, and melatonin is one of those fundamental hormones on which from which other hormones are made. So it's so important for fertility and reproduction that they literally inject sheep with melatonin when they're trying to get them fertile. So if you're not wearing blue light glasses and you're watching things like Netflix, etc., late at night, or you're on your laptop doing work late at night, or you're on your phone talking to your friends late at night, guess what? Your melatonin levels are taking a crash. And when your melatonin levels are taking a crash, your other reproductive hormones are being affected. So I'm just going to tune into the angels right now and to creator. And the first thing that we're being shown to clear is the late at night being the only time I have to myself. So can we release that and show you that you can ask God to create a time for you at other times and spaces during the day? And all the worry about money, the worry about politics, the worry about whether you're loved, the worry about whether or not you're attractive, the really scary thoughts that go on in the middle of the night, can we release them to God now, please? Any ways that you're resisting sleep because you don't want the day to be over, either because you feel like you failed in that day, or you didn't get enough done, or because you didn't get any joy out of that day. Ooh, let's show you that that can't be resisted by not sleeping. That can only be changed through choices. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's looking a lot better. Okay, I'm just going to quickly have a check because I can see a couple more questions on here as well. Okay, let me just hide this. Okay, so Lizzie's saying to me, "Hi, Sky. My question is, what's the best way of getting rid of cysts without medical intervention?" Okay, so as a rule, when you're dealing with cysts, tumors, etc., that will not go away, it's because they contain viruses, toxins like heavy metals, copper from copper coils and things like that, or fungus, things like candida, that if released into the bloodstream would cause sepsis or would cause more serious problems. So what the body does when it finds something serious is it puts it in a nice little container, like a little ball, to keep your to keep you safe, basically. And it's not going to dissolve that until it has a way of getting rid of those toxins in a healthy way. So, one of the most powerful things that you can do is a heavy metal detox. And you can go and get chelation therapy to help with cysts and etc. Or a viral detox, or a heavy metal, sorry, a mucus detox slash fungal detox if the problem is fungal. And I'm actually seeing that it is, and they're normally connected because a fungus grows big inside your body, things like candida, etc., when you are not breaking down your food properly inside your gut. And if you think that your gut and your womb and your bladder are all sandwiched together, and these little fungus pores, just like virus pores, are absolutely tiny. They're so tiny they can make it through a cell wall, and they make it through the walls because they need to break down the toxins, right? And when they're not able to break down the toxins permanently, that's when they become a permanent part of your body. So, anywhere where you feel like you're not able to get rid of a toxic situation or a toxic person, anywhere where you're stuck with it long term, that's where, from a metaphysical perspective, I would work on when you're trying to get rid of stubborn cysts, tumors, things like that. And I really wouldn't resist medical intervention. Whatever fears you have about the medical profession, can we release those now and show you that the most important thing is to follow your divine guidance? And sometimes your divine guidance is to get a cyst removed medically, and sometimes it is to do a detox, but the most important thing is to follow your guidance. There we go. Colonics also make a huge difference just because they relieve the toxic burden on your body so much. The average person is carrying an extra 15 pounds of fecal matter inside their colon, and those toxins are for real, and they really contribute to our body forming tumors and cysts. It's how Louise Hay got rid of her cervical cancer problems, was consistent colonics along with reflexology. And you can get those colonics with herbs that are geared towards helping with heavy metal and toxin detoxes. Let me just find my hormones for you guys so that we can look at the beliefs for these quickly. Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to pronounce this correct with my dyslexia, but here we go. The hormone that's directly connected to your matriarch energy, so that queen empress energy, is called gondotropin, gondotropin releasing hormone. Okay. And it's the boss of our cycle. And it's the hormone that, when it's released by your hypothalamus, tells all the other hormones what to do. And it's the one that, when it's absent, because we get overwhelmed and we get absent, we're like, I can't do this. People are asking too much of me, wanting too much of me, and we pull back, right? That's the one that kind of stops talking to everybody. The one that doesn't know how to lead with love. And that's what causes the absence, because leading is a full-time job, right? And it requires a lot of attention to detail and a lot of TLC, and it brings up a lot of people's parenting issues. Okay, so the pulses from the gonadotropin hormone are released, right, by your hypothalamus. And these pulses are picked up by your pituitary gland, and they stimulate the release of two hormones, the follicle releasing hormone and the luteinizing hormone. Okay. The amount of each hormone is dependent on the frequency and magnitude of the gonadotropin gland. Okay. So when you're commanding healings, what we're going to do is we're just going to go into that divine white light, and we're going to command for the highest and best amount of the gonadotropin hormone to be produced for your body through creator of all that is. Because if it's out of whack, everybody else is out of whack. It's like when the boss is out of whack, the whole company isn't doing well, right? If the mom is out of whack, the whole family isn't functioning. So we're back to hierarchy, which takes us back to minerals. Okay. Whew. Okay, you know what? People are asking, like, there's some people like, Can you please help me with my uterus prolapse?" We can do that separate. It's slightly different, but it's connected because when estrogen is running low, estrogen actually has a very big effect on our muscle strength and entropy. So when our estrogen is running low, our periods get heavier, but our muscles also get weaker, and that's prolonged estrogen problems can lead to prolapsed uterus. I'm gonna get like fluffy toys, like uterus toys and stuff, so I can show you guys this. But basically, you're working on the muscles. So things like Kegel exercises. There's some actually very good Kegel machines that are connected to apps on your laptop that will show you the muscles getting stronger, but also visualizing the muscles recreating. And the energy of muscles is invincibility, that energy of unconditional strength. So when our muscles are collapsing, it comes from that belief of, I cannot hold this together anymore. Right? It's too much for me. It's overwhelming. And it's changing those beliefs to, God does not give me more than I can handle. I have unconditional strength. I'm unstoppable. Everything that I know need will be provided to me, including all the support that I need, and keeping affirming those things to let the reality change. Okay, to let the reality change. Okay, so the the gonadotropin hormone is released. It talks to the pituitary gland, and then the pituitary gland creates follicle stimulating hormone and the LH or lutein hormone. Okay, and these pulses get the FSH going, and the LH responds to the higher frequencies. Okay, um, I want you to think of. I want to think of like Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada, or Marmee in Little Women, right? The energy of these women that when they're in the home, they don't necessarily have to be there, but everybody knows what they're doing and where they're supposed to be and how much of it they're supposed to be doing and what not to be doing. It's that kind of energy that gets represented by our gonadotropin hormone. Okay, so as we age, the coordination and the pattern of this pulse can alter because we get tired. We also don't know how to when you nurture people underneath you, and this is why companies will often have non-compete clauses and things like that inside their contracts, right? When you nurture people underneath you and you teach them to do your job, there's a competitive energy, and you can see that between mothers and adolescent daughters, and you can see that in a company environment. And it's like this backlash of, I can do it better than you can do it, and this competition for your role or for your place, where the older people are replaced by the younger people and stuff like that, right? That also happens energetically because the role of someone who's older as they pull themselves out of a company or out of a family to allow the new people to take up the positions that they were once in is not redundant. It becomes that guiding role, and also that balancing pillar to help people make decisions from a place of balance and to make decisions which they will not live to regret. Because whilst we're more impulsive and we're stronger and we have more energy when we're younger, those things can work against us, because we often don't see the long-term game, or we don't realize how hard something is going to be, or we make short-term choices. So it's the same thing when we're working with this hormone, is that we need it long term. We need it long term so that we are conscious, so that we are sentient, and so that we do not go unconscious. Literally, it's like what Course in Miracles talks about, so that we're able to be present through every stage of not just our own adulthood, but of our kids' adulthood, of our partner's adulthood, to help people on every single phase of their life journey. And when you're young, whether it's adolescent or 20s or 30s, you think that those are the hardest phases of life, and actually those are often the easiest phases of life. The harder phases of life come when when your mother and father die, when you're dealing with your kids going through, divorces or relationship challenges or health challenges, and you don't know what's going to come, and you're not sure if you can rely on your own physical strength. Being older is harder than being younger. right? So it's that energy of understanding how hard life can be, and not just preparing yourself, but preparing the future generations for every season of their life. And most of us are ridiculously underprepared for autumn and winter in our lives. And it's one of the reasons that I think, um, you know, you can reverse things or transition things. You can change your future entirely if you can see it coming and you change the beliefs around it. But you can't do that if you're refusing to see what's coming, right? If your eyes are closed. And that happens a lot when I'm teaching theta or when I'm teaching psychic development, because the people will often, close their eyes because they don't want to do a future reading. They don't want to see the future because they know it's not what they want it to be. But you can't change it unless you look, right? And every single catastrophe that's happened in my life has happened because I didn't want to do a future reading, or I didn't want to look into the future. Okay, everything is so complicated. Humans, yeah. God is simple, humans are complicated, and I'm describing human belief systems here. But the endocrine system is it's beautiful, and it's a reflection of our social relationships and our social communication mechanisms. Okay, Roxana saying, "Hi, Sky, lovely to see you. Thank you for these. My left ovary feels swollen. What do I need to focus on to release, please? I feel so much better in these last 5 months. Thank you for your support and guidance." So left is around female principles. Ovary is around the future generations are having children. So it's around looking at predominantly freedom, support, and respect for mothers. It's well, especially when we're dealing with estrogen. This is such a hard one, because not only do mothers get a hard rep from Freud, and there's a lot of stuff on narcissistic mothers right now, but also mothers don't get any support. And of course, when you throw somebody into a situation where they're hormonally unbalanced, they're exhausted because they're dealing with sleep deprivation, they've had no education on it whatsoever, and they get a lot of judgment from society, it's a recipe for a friggin' powder keg, right? It's not a joke, and it affects our children and our families directly. And that's what happens. So when it comes to the left ovary, you're looking at clearing respect for your own inner mother archetype, and really having a look at the places where you fear becoming your mom if you were to have children. Ovary is all about future kids, whether you decide to have them or not. And it's also about how you nurture other people into adulthood. So, VAs, staff, anywhere where you are helping people grow into their adulthood, that mother energy can come through, for better and for worse. Okay, for better and for worse. So I'm going to keep going with our hormones. I literally got 1 minute to get the hormones done. Sorry, 1 second, hubby coming in. Oh, Chacha coming in. Sorry, we've got a Bubba in the background. Todd? He's upstairs. 1 second. This is not supposed to happen. He's upstairs, yeah. Come here, you little rascal. Yeah, well, that was illegal. Uh-huh. Oh God, my baby's a climber. There's two. There's not one. There's two guys, stair gates, and he got over both of them and was at the top of the stairs and came into Mummy's office. I'm gonna have to deal with that after this. Okay, feel free to laugh at me and enjoy my insanity. I don't believe he did that. Sorry, I'm in shock. Okay. What to do in time before period, because my body takes more water inside the body, and I can feel it's also connected to the immune system. Herbs like rosemary are very good for helping release water retention. Reducing salt is very good for water retention. But what water retention is showing you from a metaphysical perspective is that you are not giving yourself enough time to process emotions. And I'm queen of this. And it only stopped happening for me when I started keeping a diary, right? Because I am very conscious of other people's feelings, and my default is to go into silence when I am stressed or angry, because I may not be enlightened enough to not have the angry feelings, but I am enlightened enough to know that dumping them all over somebody else isn't going to help, and it's going to make the situation worse. That's what Course in Miracles kind of trains you to do. But you need a place, and not a person, a place, which is why a diary is so useful, to get all of your feelings out, so you can get clear on how you really feel and what's really going on for you. And resolve what the kind of action that you want to take. So a diary is really, really good for resolving water retention issues. So is rosemary, doTERRA, an amazing rosemary essential oil too, and salt. Girls, just seriously get rid of the salt. It's bad, bad juju. Okay, so follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, does exactly what it says on the tin. It stimulates the follicles in your ovaries to grow and mature and eventually release eggs at ovulation. So you can see how, if you think that the follicle stimulating hormone is like the big sister energy, it's that energy of um, I'm going to nurture you and I'm going to teach you what you need to know so that you can go out into the big world and kick ass. Right. So that when you aren't receiving that, or when you're not capable of giving that, that's when the follicle stimulating hormone is out of balance. Okay. So at the start, it stimulates it stimulates one of your follicles until that follicle outshines all the others. Okay. And then it stands down and we pull another hormone called inhibin, and it sends a signal to more follicles that they're needed for that cycle. And then later in that cycle, just before ovulation, it arrives back at the scene. So back to this big sister thing. Like you come in, you give somebody a pep talk, you teach them what they need to know, you leave them alone to do their thing and see how they did it, and then you come back in to check on them at the end, right? So it's that big sister energy. And those it's very much around sisters, friendships, anywhere where mentoring, anywhere where you feel like you are not receiving encouragement, recognition, or no, there's no eyes on what you're doing or your contribution to this space. Okay. um Estrogen, which we talked a bit about before, is then secreted by your developing follicles and causes the lining of your uterus to plump up in the anticipation of a fertilized egg potentially implanting in the second half of your cycle, your luteal phase. Okay. Estrogen can make you feel confident, alluring, and sensual. It can clear up your skin and make your features more symmetrical. It can help you learn new skills and feel on top of the world. Estrogen is this is why I said to you guys, it's so connected to your mental clarity, and also to your gut health, and also to your bone and mineral density. Right. So getting our estrogen together with the help of the correct herbs and with the help of the correct belief work, getting rid of those mother issues is a very, very, very important thing to do. Okay. Um, the estrogen plays over 300 roles inside the body, which is why once it does a runner, you really, really feel it. Okay. Estrogen does over 300 roles inside the body, just like mothers do a huge number of roles, not just inside families, but in society. Over 300 different roles. Okay. Estrogen is actually made up of a conversion from an androgen hormone, such as testosterone and androstenedione. So if you think that the follicles take those hormones like testosterone and change them into estrogen, right? You can see how all the hormones in your endocrine system are interconnected, and how it's not just one thing. You can't just focus on your estrogen or just focus on your progesterone. You have to focus on harmony, right, between all the different parts of the system. Okay. Then we have we talked a bit about LH already, didn't we? Okay. So no, we talked about FH, which is the sister type energy. LH then shows up, which is the luteinizing hormone, and it's the part that gives us power and strength. And it gives like that final push towards ovulation. It's that bit that kind of eggs us on and dares us to be more than we can be. I think that's like the best friend hormone. Whenever I do work on this hormone with people, I look at whether they have a best friend that pushes them or keeps them. Or sometimes best friends, kind of only want you to have one best friend and kind of want you to stay really close and are quite jealous. And sometimes best friends really help you go out into the world and create experiences to share with you. I have a sneaky suspicion, guys. Let me just take the calendar that I may need to be in a meeting soon. Yeah, we've got a little bit of time. We're good. Okay. And then the insanity of dyslexia, I really find it hard to keep track. If I wasn't for Katya, sometimes seriously. Okay, Test Testosterone is not a male hormone. Okay, this we need to talk about testosterone a little bit, and this is where you see it becomes important to heal your inner masculine and your family's masculine constellation energy. It's produced by all humans, and it peaks at around the time of ovulation, at the same time as estrogen and LH. It's active and competitive, so that's where you kind of get like that women competing energy with each other. And it keeps and strengthens our bones and our muscles and contributes to increased sexual desire around the time that that egg is coming and the time that egg is coming through. So the part of us that wants to leave a legacy, that wants to procreate, that's our inner masculine part. So when that's seriously wounded, either ancestrally or emotionally, it comes into play and it affects our capacity to ovulate, but also the communication that happens around having children. So if you think about those conversations where like whether you think kids are a blessing or a burden, that comes around whether or not your testosterone or your inner masculine is healed. So if you struggle with the testosterone bit and your tests are coming back showing that your testosterone is low, can lead to hair loss, can lead to low libido, low sex drive, incredibly low metabolism. Hope. Sorry, I'm going backwards. So I can find my testosterone notes. It's a thing about tech. Okay. Okay. So when we're dealing with the testosterone, you're looking at healing not just your own inner masculine, but we're talking about that drive, right? That purpose in life. And that only comes from looking at who you are now. And this is so important during menopause as an initiation because you're not who you were. And very often, when you don't take the time to get to know who you are now, you are going towards goals and dreams that have nothing to do with what you want anymore. You're going towards goals and dreams that have to do with what you wanted 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, and nothing to do with what you want now or what makes you happy now. It's a woman's right to be able to change her mind, right? So that's what you're looking at when you're healing the testosterone. I'm going to search for my testosterone notes. Gosh. Um, so, oh, I think I'm almost there. Okay. Okay, so the last one that I wanted to cover with you today was your progesterone. So, progesterone is the Zen hormone. So I like to think of it as like your higher self hormone or like the inner Zen energy. And what it does is it calms you down. It gives you this deep, unshakable clarity. And it has a very um, soothing effect on the nervous system. So very often when we're in this constant fight, flight, freeze, it's because our progesterone isn't quite right. And that's why you might find it easier to fall asleep and fall asleep more deeply around the time that progesterone is high and really struggle with insomnia at the time that progesterone is low. Okay. Which is 5 to 7 days, around day 21 or 28 of most cycles. But everybody's cycle is different. So that's why I was saying at the beginning, track, because your body is not the same as other people's. And what's normal for your cycle may not be normal for other people's cycles. And knowledge is everything. Okay. Knowledge is everything. Okay. I'm just going to have a quick. So sometimes progesterone declines by itself, and this is, we talked about estrogen being the mother energy, progesterone is the daughter energy. So not knowing what a daughter is, not knowing what it feels like to be a daughter or to be recognized as a daughter, because maybe you were treated as a servant or a nanny or the carer for the other kids, or maybe you were ignored because your mum was, mentally or emotionally or hormonally ill, or absent because she was at work all the time. Whenever there's an energy of, I don't know how to be a daughter and I've never been treated like a loving daughter, progesterone gets thrown out of whack. So anywhere where you don't have creator's perspective, definition, understanding of being a daughter, can we download you with that now, please? Okay, and it's the same thing. When you don't know how to be a daughter or don't feel like you're valued as a daughter, guess what? We leave, we disappear. This, you hit 17 and you run away, or you run away at 12 or 13, or you get a job on the other side of the planet, right? We find a way of disconnecting from the other hormones, and that means disconnecting from our um our divine mother hormone or our godmother hormone, and the communication stops. And when the communication stops between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland and the ovaries, and the pituitary and the progesterone stops getting created, that's when we can end up really dealing with depression, anxiety, feeling really ugly and not sexual because our progesterone is out of whack, and it makes you feel really vulnerable, raw, teary, really wanting to be alone or isolating yourself from others. And it might occur 2 or 3 hours before you start bleeding when you have a cycle, or 1 or 2 days a month when your cycle's starting to taper off because you're in perimenopause. Okay. So if you're aware of when you ovulate and how long your luteal phase is, then you can estimate when your period's going to start and when your progesterone's going to be dropping off. And you know that you can use things like sesame seeds and Agnus castus and other hormones to help boost your progesterone levels so that you don't have to deal with that um, that emotional black hole that can come up when we're low on our progesterone. Okay, so one of the best things that you can do is eat regularly and not skip meals. Avoid alcohol because this throws your liver off, and I'm not going to get into liver. We have a whole challenges on liver, which we're going to be running against soon. But your liver gets rid of hormones, and they have a very short shelf life. Whenever you add alcohol or you add medicines or drugs, the liver has to work harder to get rid of those hormones, and that's a problem. Sit with your feelings and give them space. So we talked about writing or journaling. Obviously, if your time is low, middle of the night and stuff like that is not the best time, but it's better out than in. It's way better out than in. And when you write, you connect the prefrontal cortex to the reptilian brain. So it makes a huge difference just dumping all your feelings on a diary instead of on your partner or on your kids or on your best friend or on your boss. It's much better to dump them all in a diary and get clear. This is how I'm feeling, and this is what I need. And so you're able to come into that communication from a space of communion instead of from a space of rage or anger. Okay. Um, and movement. So movement is incredibly important, particularly light weights or resistance weights, as along with the same time as like restorative yoga or those kind of exercises, because they help your body not just get rid of um, old hormones, but find balance and help you return back to your connection to creator, right? We think we have many problems, but really we only have one, and that's a disconnection from God. So when we're disconnected from the divine mother, our gonadotropin hormone goes a bit mad. The other hormones don't do what they're supposed to do, and they become deficient or absent entirely. Kind of like if the boss isn't absent, then the employees aren't doing their job. And then the body doesn't get what it needs. It's exactly the same thing, right? The hormones are very connected to the hierarchy of communication as well. So we're just going to tomorrow we're going to go deeper into the minerals. Today we kind of covered the hormones, and then the day after we're going to go into the DNA and how you can have inherited, inherited negative menopausal and perimenopausal and postmenopausal processes because of beliefs. We're doing a masterclass this week, so if you'd like the link to that, and you'd like to join us, then just ask and we'll send you the link. But if not, the rest of the challenge tomorrow is going to be going deeper into um, mastering the metaphysical aspects of menopause, both tomorrow and the day after, completely free. And then we have the masterclass, which goes even deeper into the beliefs and the downloads and the activations and the healings, etc. But I thought it was the very best way to celebrate our menopause day, which is 28th of October. So let's do our closing prayer. And I'm going to ask Archangel Raphael to be with all of you and to balance your hormones, to heal your wombs, ovaries, uteruses, even if those spaces have already been removed or altered in some way, shape, or form. To command an instant healing on all cysts, tumors, ovaries, and your endocrine system. And on your communication with God, with yourselves, and for you to really understand how important you are at every stage and every season of your life. That you're not done, you're not over the hill, I'm sorry, you're still needed as you move into this matriarchal sage energy. Okay, let's do our closing prayer. O Great Spirit, Father Sky, Mother Earth, the winds, the waters, my Father, my Mother, Atanaha, all that is. We thank you for our lives and we thank you for these good people. We thank you for all that we are and all that we are to become. We dedicate our time spent together and our relationships with one another to you. We ask that our suffering be ended, that our pain be lifted, to the love and to the peace that lay beyond. Aho, Amen, Namaste. See you guys tomorrow. Love you. Love you very, very much.